Peace and greetings, family. Welcome back to the Original Titan, where we are talking about the hollow mind perceiver and the parts of the circuit board. What we're going to do at this time is wrap it all up so that we can be able to understand what we're doing here, how things work, and how we can begin to apply it. In this particular session, we are dealing with the outer mental spheres at this time, particularly the first time dimension, first mental sphere at the top left. We want to be reminded that the first time dimension, first mental sphere, deals with alpha alpha, profound samadhi. Let's begin by reminding ourselves what first mental sphere means. We're going to be talking about karmic patterns, past life dormant anophs. We're also talking racial archetypal memory. We may have been a different race and in different life. We're also talking and spoke about the primal instinctual programs and the autonomic functions. This mental sphere serves as the resonant chamber of the physical body, where paranormal faculties are developed, stored, and outsourced. This sphere is the producer of parapsychological phenomena and paranormal activity. It is the main storehouse of untapped psychic energy. So what we call thought is actually an electronic process that corresponds with interlocking information bits known as anophic engravings in a series. Remember, our brain is electrical. We are electrical. And so we begin to see how our thoughts work with the mental spheres. When we say karmic patterns, as we read earlier, it can deal with not trusting others. It could be you're a revenge seeker. It can even mean hoarding because perhaps in a past life you didn't have enough. It could be a lover of truth. You brought that with you. So that would be considered good karma. To be nice to people, to be empathetic toward folks. When we talked about dormant anophs, and we gave a brief description up at top that's highlighted, we're talking about visions, incomplete distant memories, snapshots of worlds gone by that might just come to your mind and in an instant it's gone. Because it's not a full movie, it's not a full picture, but just parts. Okay? That's why we call them dormant anophs, because it's not like it's something that comes to you on a daily basis. It may come through triggers that comes to you, and you might get a picture, you might have a feeling, you might have a flash that's unique to anything else you've ever felt. That would be considered a dormant anoph. When we talk about primal instinctual things, we talked about the metabolic functions. What we're talking about is that you've learned how to, for instance, plant food from another life. Something that you have, that your soul remembers doing. Okay? Autonomic functions. We're talking physical. It could be something on your father's side, something on your mother's side, something that you've picked up. It can even be a behavioral function. For instance, your family might be really big on education. Then again, your family may not deem education on the top of the tier, but perhaps may want you to join the family business or to create a business. These would be considered autonomic functions. So let's go over of what we've learned of the parts of this particular quadrant. We know about external time, which is present time, and we know that it's 13 units. Then we come to the fifth force, which is also known as the superconscious. It too has 13 units. But we want you to remember that the superconscious, which is the fifth force, in the four outer mental spheres, because we're going to see these exact colors in the four outer mental spheres, they're going to deal with how we interpret energy that comes in. Also, the thing to remember about the fifth force is that it binds all known forces together. The gravitational force, electromagnetic, biopsychic, strong, and weak forces. Now, why am I bringing this up? Because whatever it is that you interpret in your energy, it's going to be bound, okay? The fifth force binds it all together, meaning that, say, for instance, it's a good interpretation to you, then all of the forces are going to bind it, okay? But what if it's something that you interpreted that may be a little off for whatever reason? It's still going to be binded together, which means that you're going to have to know how to recreate yourself, particularly in this time dimension, in this mental sphere, where there's untapped energy, where we can, we're not a victim here in the first cosmic creation. We can change. And as a matter of fact, we must, because the new world is here. And in order for us to be able to remain and to ascend with it, we have to become a new being. We also have ESP, the sixth time dimension, and it has 11 units of magnitudes. And if we remember, magnitudes, we stated, was the size or the extent of something. So when we talk about ESP, we're talking about extrasensory perception. It represents our sixth sense. And this is our perceptions. Okay? It's a little bit different from interpretations. So we do not use the physical senses, but we use the mind senses in this particular area, such as telepathy, clairvoyance, gnosis, deja vu, etc. Then we come to the radio core matrix, 8 plus 1 units. We come to the intergalactic core matrix, 3 plus 1 units. So when we talked about radio sense core matrix, 8 plus 1 units, we're going to see exactly how that works right now. Number 1, that's first. Number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, plus 1, which is shared with the intergalactic core, will be the 3D, 4D alternate phase unit. What does this actually mean besides taste, touch, smell, sound, and vision, and then also on a higher note, and other than psi in and psi out of how we're interpreting this energy? I want you to keep in mind, and this is key, that every sensory experience that we have goes through 5-part sequences that's based on the dream spell time cells. Remember the time cells? Input, store, process, output, and matrix. I came up with the acronym of ISPALM to help us to remember all of these different dynamics. Every sensory experience goes through input. Remember what that was? That's to be informed. It informs us. Store means we remember. Process means that we are formulating and articulating what it is that we're receiving. What about output? That means that we are expressing. Okay? And what about matrix? That means that we are self-generating from what we are experiencing. This sequence occurs in the sense core. The master time unit governs that whole process. That's what that 13 is. We want to also remember what different parts of these units mean. For instance, psi. Psi is the psychic energy that's released from the interaction of consciousness with our mental sensory information. In other words, every sensory experience we have is going to register as an information unit that you're going to recall. And when we cognize or become aware of this information, that's when it becomes a psi. Now, psi input equals receive, and psi output equals transmit. So we receive energy and we transmit energy. We're either transmitting or receiving. So how do we receive information in the 3D? Through our sensory nodes. In any of its 5 levels of our senses, our organs, our conscious modes, objects, and action organs. The only thing left to do at this point is to practice decoding. I came up with 3 steps to begin to decode. The first one is matrices definitions. We have to know what time, space, and synchronicity means. When we list the synchronic order, we're talking about the measure of movement of reality. And if you remember what we said in the first video, is that our consciousness also is moved along with this reality. The second step is that we want to determine the location of the matrices. Is the matrices in present time, which we know to be external time? Is it in the fifth force, which we know to be the superconscious? Is it on ESP, in or out? Is it in the sensory core? Is it on a magnitude or one of the 13 tones? Is it directly on a portal, which is either 7 or 6? Portals draw us in, okay? They convey information. They even assemble information that we may not have quite together. Number 3, we must practice. A, we have to recall the information concerning the parts of the first time dimension and first mental sphere. And just so that you know, as we continue on into the other outer mental spheres, most of the information will be the same. The only difference will be the galactic channel that we're using and what that particular channel is representing. B, we have to apply this information to our goals, our desires, our intentions. You might say, I don't have a goal, I don't have it, and I'm just working, or I'm just, No, we all have dreams. We all have goals. There's no one that does not dream. If you're on this earth, you got a dream, but you have to be aware of it. And that's where continuing consciousness comes in, but we're not at that particular junction yet. And finally, C, we have to keep the synchronotron in mind. When we say the synchronotron, we want to know what archetype are we on, what is the destiny oracle for that particular kin, where are we on the calendar, what moon are we in, what does that moon represent, what powers are we working with, what actions, what essences, what is the galactic spectrum or the galactic season. Not talking about winter, spring, summer, and fall, which is earthly seasons, but we're talking galactic seasons. And that can be either red serpent, white dog, blue eagle, or the yellow sun. I would like to thank you all and for your support. Peace to the gods.